Yeah, thanks everybody. So Mike Dayton, I'm with Shockoe. No, that doesn't mean Shopco. We're Shockoe. We're a tech design firm that builds digital experiences. We're really on the tech side, build mobile apps, immersive experiences. Really helps you turn that brand vision into the digital connection that you're looking for from fans, from customers. And we actually have the cool distinction of having built a beta app for brand innovators. And if you're interested in actually testing it, we've actually got some really cool AI built into it where you can begin to ask questions. Again, it's beta mode, but if you're interested in it, Mason, would you raise your hand? We'd love your feedback on the app. It's still in test flight, so you have to download it to your phone, either iPhone or Android. But we'd love to get your feedback on it because we're going to continue to make it better. But we actually there's a lot of like AI going around right now, and we actually used AI ourselves to develop that code and build this beta app in less than a week. I'm sorry, yeah. Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, I just blew the whole commercial for our company. So, we hear me better? All right. So I've got with me Patrick Holly, who just like literally hauled ass to get here from the airport. Literally, he texted me, and I'm not from Austin. He is. He says, "Hey, is there parking nearby?" I'm like, "Dude, I have no idea. Where are you?" But he made it.
Not close is where I was. Not close.
And Patrick, why don't you introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about yourself and your background?
Sure. My name is Patrick Holly. I'm the VP of Creative at Upwork. We are the world's largest freelancing platform. You can find any of 10,000 different skills on our platform, from designers and developers to scent artists. We actually used one time to make a scented candle, which was an interesting thing.
Scent artist.
Yeah. So kind of anything you want, you can find them. All remote, all freelance, all the time.
That's very cool. Well, before we dive into like the whole like meat of the discussion about innovating and with your brand in a recessionary environment, let's like back up a little bit and talk about brand building itself. There's so many discussions about brand building, but it fits somewhere within the broader marketing strategy, right? And marketing context. So kind of what's your perspective? Just share a little bit of your perspectives on where brand building fits in an overall marketing strategy.
Yeah, I think there's two ways to think about brand building. There's one where it's like, hey, you build your brand by making big, sexy TV commercials that have a massive media buy behind them, which absolutely is brand building. It's my favorite part of it as a creative. But something that I've learned, especially over the past year or so of this current lovely economic climate we find ourselves in, is that brand building is not one thing your brand does. It's how your brand does anything and everything. And so it's the way you do those big, sexy campaigns. It's also the way you do emails. It's the way you do events. It's the way you do direct mail. It's everything that your brand does, your capital B brand does, is brand building if you do it in the right way. It could also be a detriment to your brand if you forget that that is also a brand building moment.
All right. Well, so yeah, the free flowing money days seem to be kind of behind us now. Even if you're, I guess if you're in anything but an AI software company, it's hard to get money for anything right now. So, like, talk about your journey, like joining Upwork, because I actually saw one of your cool commercials. We talked about it a little bit. Talk about like how do you transition and not lose a beat when the money starts getting harder to come by.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been with Upwork for about 3 years now. I've done two full-scale brand campaigns, well, 2.5 full-scale brand campaigns. We'll talk about the half in a second. And they have been your typical big brand campaigns. The most recent one was featuring a zombie who came back from the dead to tell his company, he's a zombie CEO, to tell his company they've been doing it wrong all along, and they should have hired freelancers for their company. And they did it in a musical, which was a very interesting, weird thing, and actually ended up being super successful for us. It raised our unaided awareness by like 600% with our key audience, which is cool. So we were in the process of building the 2.0 to that, and it was about June of last year when we learned that it was only going to be half a campaign because it's no longer going to happen. So at that point, we really had to kind of think about, our job as marketers didn't change. We still have to build a brand. We still have to make something people care about and understand and love. We just don't have millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars to do it anymore. And so that kind of had a bit of a reckoning moment for myself and my team, who at the time was explicitly built around your typical brand campaigns to really think about how we're going to be, parlaying those skills into everything we do. Like I said, from emails and events to direct mail and all that kind of stuff that, is the stuff that doesn't get cut when the aforementioned spigot of money gets turned off. I believe actually at one time I heard from my boss, who's the CMO, that she was talking with the board and they said, load the money bazooka when we were making our last brand campaign. So like we went from that world to the profitability is king world, which makes sense. Companies should make money. Unless you're talking about the past 10 years. And so, it made sense, but it also, represented a pretty, a paradigm shift for the way that creatives and marketers have thought about marketing and creative for quite a while now.
So what do you do with that? What do you do? Okay, you got the cool zombie ad. I remember that ad well. I think I told you. I was like, that was a cool ad. But then it went away. So what do you do? So you obviously have less money to spend. You've built a team to build branding the way you were doing it. How do you pivot? How do you still have an impact and build the brand when you don't have the millions and millions of bucks to work with?
So luckily we had an existing audience. Like we weren't a brand new company. So, big brand campaigns like that are run on TV and all that kind of stuff, we all know is like that's, in large part it's conquesting new audiences. It's thinking about, who do we want to get next and add to our cohort of people who are going to be using our brand and our company and our product. So we shifted our mindset from conquesting to really either approaching or reapproaching our current audience and building a stronger relationship with them and having them go deeper into our product to sell them into more aspects of it, to increase their usage, and really just to build love that maybe didn't exist before. Maybe they used Upwork to staff, like they needed a logo at some point, or they needed like some silly thing made, and they were just like, that's just a silly company where you do small things. Maybe other freelancing platforms are like that. We'll go unnamed. But at Upwork, we try to kind of pride ourselves on this is where you go for high skill individuals to build big things. I mean, my team, for example, I have 50 people on my team. 80% of them are freelancers, and they are all like top flight people from around the world. And so, I kind of lost my train of thought.
Well, talk about like what
I was like hating another company, and I was like,
you
I
got
want to go
those,
down that one.
Here, let me give you some inspiration. So, your staff are mostly freelancers themselves. How do you leverage your own brand, your own company, and what it does to actually, get shit done, as they say?
Right. So, like I was saying before, people who are our customers, like there's varying levels of that. There are people who have been power users of us, and we have some companies that staff a massive portion of their workforce with us, and then we have people who have come to us for one small thing. And so we're like, how can we, of course, continue to talk to those people who have done big stuff with us before because they understand the value of our company, but how do we approach or reapproach those people who have used us in varying levels to increase their understanding of our product and their love of our product through the ways that we currently interact with them in our ecosystem that they exist in.
So if you're doing, are you doing more like smaller things, leveraging your own freelance community? I think you told me a story about the coffee campaign, International Coffee Day. That was kind of a cool thing. Why don't you? I think people are looking for practical examples of, what can I do? Because we're all kind of in the same, environment, right? To some degree or another, different companies have different levels of budgets for this kind of thing. But wait, what do you do, and what advice would you give, or some examples you give to the audience here about practical things you were actually able to do, maybe on a lower budget that had big impact?
Absolutely. So like I said before, everything that your brand does is a brand building opportunity. And so this was actually, this came in from our social team. And before I even go into that, I'll say this thing I'm about to say has won more awards than anything else we've ever done, including the big flashy super $1 million campaign. So this was a surprise to me too. So anyway, our social team came to us and they're like, hey, International Coffee Day is coming up. Which I didn't know existed, but apparently it does. And we want to do something for it. We want to take a photo of a coffee mug and put it on social media. And I'm like, we can give you the most badass fucking photo of a coffee mug you've ever seen. Like, no problem. Like, I have a photographer over here who's done like cover of Vogue. He'll crush a photo of a coffee mug. But like I was like, we should probably think strategically about like what narrative does Upwork, a technological freelancing company, have to do with International Coffee Day? And if there is a connection there, let's pull on that string. If not, let's maybe go back to the social team and say, can we try another holiday? But what we ended up thinking is like, obviously there's a connection between work and coffee. You know, most of us start our day with it. But what about Upwork and coffee? And so we thought about it and we're like, you know, the core of Upwork and the core of what we do as a company is to connect people who are looking for work with people who are looking to get work done. And so how can we forward or kind of like create a larger narrative around that purpose using the context of this moment? So what we ended up doing, rather than a photo of a coffee mug, was we ended up making our own coffee because that sounded fun. But we partnered with a roaster out of Oakland called Red Bay Coffee Roasters. We made our own coffee. It's like a super high caffeine blend. It didn't cost us that much money, but we called it Wake and Make because we're children and want to make a weed reference in a corporate setting. And so we called it Wake and Make, and there you go. I'm sure that like the executives we sent them to didn't get it either. Wink. So we ended up making the coffee, and then we hired 5 illustrators off our platform, and we had each of them illustrate their own bag, and we made 1,000 of each of them, and we gave them to our sales team in these little packages. So each package was these 5 bags, each of them illustrated by someone off Upwork, and we gave them to the sales team and said, hey, send these to your best current and prospective customers, and wish them a happy International Coffee Day. And the thing is that they were actually just billboards for our talent and our platform, because you could look at these bags and be like, hey, it's a beautiful bag. You flip it over and you can actually scan a code and hire the person who made it right off Upwork. And so it kind of acted as this kind of roundabout way to get people to not only engage with our sales team, but also engage with our product by virtue of this holiday no one knew existed. And what we actually ended up doing after that, because it was really successful, it ended up, I think, in the first week or something, got $300,000 in leads for our sales team, and it cost us like 20 grand all in. So it was successful. Like, let's kind of carry this further. And so what we ended up doing is we found out that Red Bay Coffee Roasters were actually a client of Upwork. They'd used Upwork for some kind of small thing before, and told us, and we're like, well, fantastic, we want to do a documentary on you. And so what we ended up doing was hiring an entire film crew off of Upwork. So director, storyboard artist, editor, on-ground crew, all that kind of stuff was off Upwork. And what we ended up doing was filming that, doing the whole documentary, and then creating a web page, upwork.com/beautifulcoffee, if you want to check it out. It ended up being, again, very successful for us. Both creatively and professionally, but we ended up having that as another way to reach out to customers, be like, hey, here's a follow-on from what we showed you before. Check out this cool documentary, and it's made by everybody on the platform. You can go to this website. You can actually hire the people directly from there. Actually, that film also ended up winning Best Branded Content of the Year at PR Week. We beat out Apple for that, which was kind of cool.
That's really cool. Are there anybody here use Upwork to kind of expand your staff, like in this environment where you don't need like a full-time?
Judging all of you.
Yeah,
if you don't
we're
put your
just
hand
like,
up. There you go.
Okay, there we go.
Those two.
Okay. For your personal gig. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the whole work environment has changed, right? We got post-COVID, now we're like fighting return to office. And the expectation of the workforce is changing generationally as well. So like, how do you see the very company you're working for, I think, actually has something for a lot of the brand marketers here in terms of that flexible workforce. 2 questions. Like, how do you maintain kind of the consistency when you're used to having that big brand, that big investment with a bunch of smaller kind of micro-focused campaigns and activations? How do you make sure that those things stay consistent with the bigger brand, number one? And number 2, how do you measure those smaller things in terms of their impact?
That first thing you asked, on like how do we remain consistent, was a big question that we're actually trying to answer right now. Because when you go from doing a few big things to a lot of small things, you can be fragmented as a brand and as a marketing team. And we realized that we were fragmented because we had gone through a rebrand in 2021. And basically all that gave us was a color palette, a typeface, and that's about it. And that's not a brand, especially not one that can last over time and evolve. And what we realized is that we didn't actually have strategic backing behind our brand to understand how it grows and shapes to things beyond the traditional applications, which is print, sight, sound, and motion. And so what we're actually in the process of doing right now is a strategic breakdown on what our brand is and is not, and that will end up being a pretty in-depth bit of documentation that not only designers and creatives can use, but brand marketers and everybody throughout the whole marketing funnel can understand. So the answer is it's hard. It's hard to have a consistent brand, especially when you have a creative team that wants to do a bunch of fun stuff and conquest things like fucking coffee bags, But the reality is that especially for our brand, because we have so many people who are their own creators on the platform, we want to leverage them. That it's like, how can we make sure that we're using them while also maintaining our own brand? Is a pretty sticky situation. So we're working that out now. But the main thing that we've found to be consistent is just the purpose behind your work. So like I said before, when we were trying to do that whole thing with the coffee day, is like we always went back to the first principle of what our company is here to do. And it's to connect people who are looking for work with people who are looking to get work done. And so if whatever you are doing is to that end and you have your logo at the end, you're doing all right. It's just a matter of thinking about that strategic foundation of your actual brand expression visually that will be kind of the important factor in longevity for that. Yeah. And the second thing you said was, I'm sorry.
Just how do you measure?
Oh, yeah.
Measure those micro campaigns, like the coffee campaign versus the zombie guy commercials.
Yeah. I mean, they're all measured differently. They're as varied as the executions are. Like for the coffee thing, it was sales lead volume and value. And for other things, it could be impressions on social. For other things, it could be brand sentiment. And so for that, I think it's really important to work with your analytics team. It's important to work with your brand partners and just be like, what is the one thing that we want this to do? Because a lot of the time, in my experience, you'll talk to a brand marketer. I'm very guilty of this too, and talking to my team. It's just like, I want to do these 10 things. You're like, well, we're only doing one thing. How do you want it to do 10 things? I don't know, just fucking figure it out. It's like, doesn't work that way. You need to be, if you're going to be, especially with a smaller campaign, what is the one metric you're trying to move? You might move others, but the reality is that, if you're trying to serve all those masters, you're serving none of them. So it's always find one thing that is measurable, clearly measurable, and stick to that, and then everything else can be secondary.
So what I think I heard you say is, like, in addition to the brand building, there's a little bit of performance marketing in there in terms of sales leads and things that are going to grow top line, especially in a recessionary environment, right?
Yeah,
that's kind of like a lot more important now, right?
Yeah, we don't have room for fluffy metrics in this time. You're 100%. Not going to get okayed on a budget if you're just like, hey, we want to do something that raises awareness. Cool, everything you do should do that. Yeah. But how is it driving the bottom line? Because, like I said, the stuff that gets cut first when the budgets go away is the stuff that drives immeasurable or soft, fluffy metrics. So just like do the things that you can measure well.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we're going through a similar, we're not the size of Upwork, but, we've been in business about 12 years and we are going through a rebranding effort ourselves. And even for a smaller, tech shop builds, started in a journey of building mobile apps 12 years ago. I mean, building mobile apps isn't what it is today from what it was back 12 years ago. But we still have to be authentic. And in that time, we've built apps for rebuilt the PGA Tours experience app, right? Publix, Hy-Vee, a bunch of other really big customers we've done this for. So we've built up a base of customers over the years. But we're at a kind of this crossroads where it's like building a mobile app in and of itself, the technology and IT-centric approach just doesn't get it done. So we're going through a rebrand effort ourselves, and if anybody who wants to volunteer to take a look at give us some feedback on our website in 2 weeks. Don't look at it today. Look at it in 2 weeks, please. we really would welcome that because it's a lot harder than you think, even for a smaller organization like Shockoe, to maintain that. I'm not going to use the word authenticity. I swore I was not going to use that word. Oh, what's another word? But but that being true to your brand and what you do, but at the same time embracing things, because things like AI are even changing the way, and you're going to see it. And all brand marketers should be on notice right now. What you're calling an app and an experience today, generative AI is absolutely going to change that. It's changing it now. Like, there's folks that don't even want an app anymore. You can just text back and forth with an AI large language model. You never have to download an app, and you can get a great experience. We're testing some of that with the Brand Innovators app right now. So it's the days of an icon on a phone. I'm not saying they're going away. I'm not saying that, but the paradigm for what even it means to be an app and a digital experience is changing drastically. And we're in the crossroads of that as a tech company, and trying to serve our customers the best we can, because we're typically at events like this, we're the nerds sitting in the back of the room that can answer like the IT and the AI questions, because we actually know what the hell we're talking about. But we're not an ad agency, we're not the brand gurus, although we do have some good designers. Props to Mason and his team. But so it's a struggle. It's a real struggle right now. But so I don't know if you had any other things you wanted to talk about, or if you want to just kind of open it up to audience questions.
Nothing really. No, I'm happy to talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. It's a Saturday. We're just hanging out.
Yeah, a couple beers would be good. Hint.
Do you have those? I want one of those.
Dude, they're all over here, man.
That sounds great.
Get these men some beers. Are there any questions? Yes, one.
Oh, Ms. Steelhouse. Okay, so we talked a little bit about metrics, near and dear to our hearts here. So, how do you, when you're working with the brand, how do you, when you're working with the brand, tie the metrics that they care about to the campaigns that you are doing?
The metrics. Okay, so the question was like, how do we, when we're doing a campaign, how do we tie the metrics that the brand cares about with the ones that we are doing? No. And when you say the ones that I care about, you mean me personally as a creative, or you mean?
Oh, no, me as the business. So I'm a brand.
Sure.
I care about bookings, how many nights am I getting at a hotel?
Sure.
Hospitality.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you measure that? Do you work with the brand? Do you try to figure that out?
If you stand over there.
Yeah.
So come over here.
No,
if you sit here,
yeah.
question.
Okay, all right.
Front and center.
I don't like being on stage.
We're clearly not a group of sound engineers here, are we?
No, we're not. Okay, so.
Yeah, no, I think I get what you're saying. I think that the question you're saying would be probably more, I'd probably be more apt to answer it when I was working at agencies. Now that I have one client, being that we're an internal creative shop, the metrics that they care about are also the ones that I care about because I'm a stockholder. But the way that we always kind of square that is my team is very traditional in terms of the makeup. It's basically an agency. It actually literally is an agency. So we have the creative side, we have operations, we have strategy. And so our strategy team is the way that we actually are able to port what they care about with how we can actually bring that to life creatively. They're kind of like translators for us. And so the way that I found to make creative sing in a way that works for the business is having that kind of intermediary layer between the people who are actually making the creative, who just, I don't know how many of y'all have worked with creatives or are creatives. They just fucking care about making pretty things. I don't care what anyone says. It just is what it is. And
so true.
Just let's call it what it is. And so they're just going to make something that looks pretty. And they're going to do a really good job at it. The people on this side from the business just want something done that raises X metric. You need somebody in the middle who can help translate that. And I found that without a doubt, having a really good creative strategist and a good account person that can be that intermediary layer and help translate that over has led to way, way, way better work. And that's the reason why every agency has those functions.
Yeah, the only thing that's great. The only thing I would add on to that is we typically start any engagement with the client understanding or trying to understand what are the outcomes you're actually trying to accomplish. We don't start with the tech. We don't even start with the creative. We start with what is it you're actually trying to accomplish? How do you measure it? And let's get those things like all agreed to first. You start with the outcomes, and then from there you look at what are the behaviors, that digital journey, the customer journey mapping. What are the behaviors you're trying to drive that give you those outcomes? And then comes all the creative, fun, digital stuff from there. So if you start at the end in terms of the outcomes, it generally works out better for you because that can really be a good North Star to ensure that you set out to go where you want to end up versus starting with building cool stuff and then hopefully hit the mark that you never really set to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, you said that exactly the way I wanted to say that.
I hope somebody was recording it because I don't remember what I just said.
But it's starting with the why, because the people who are asking for the thing from the business know what they want, and sometimes they'll have ideas on how to get there, and they can be prescriptive if you're not, having a good conversation with them. They'll be like, "Hey, we need to raise this metric. We should do this to do it." And it's like, well, then why have you hired us? Our job is to help you figure out how to do that in the best way possible based on your audience. And so I think it's always trying to just get back to the why. Why are we doing this? What are we trying to do with it? And allowing for that to be the bulk of the fodder to make work.
Okay, we have
Here
time
comes
for
the
one
hook.
more question. See, the hook is coming soon. One more question.
Okay, cool. That two great questions. I'll probably forget the second one, so I will ask it again in a second. How much time are we spending talking to? Because we're a marketplace, like any other marketplace. I love you so much.
Yes, beer.
Let's give this woman a hand.
Applause.
Let's give this woman a hand. Cheers.
I appreciate you. I don't know who you are, but I
Hey,
also
it
love
takes
you.
a village. However it happened, I don't care. Marisol?
Marisol,
Gracias,
we appreciate you.
Marisol.
Thank you. All right, so like any other marketplace, Airbnb, eBay, whatever, you have two sides to it, right? Our two sides are talent and our clients. There are subsets to all of those, but essentially they break down into those two things. What we've realized is that it makes a lot more sense to talk to the clients because there's plenty of demand in the world. There's tons of people looking for work, but they're going to look elsewhere if they don't have the opportunity. And so what we try to do is to speak to clients on behalf of talent. And so when you look at anything that we make, whether it's a big campaign or a small campaign or anything in between, it's always like the voice is talking to the client, but in the way that we do it, it's featuring really awesome talent. And whether that talent is actually helping us co-create that work, or it's featuring them as like on-camera talent, whether they're actual people on our platform or representing people on our platform. And that allows for the talent to see, hey, they are advocating on behalf of me and making sure they have great work for me to engage with here. But also, if we show super top talent on there, they'll be like, if I'm top talent, I'll be in good company if I go on Upwork. And so that's kind of our philosophy around that, because in many ways it can be a bit of a cannibalistic act if you try to speak to one or the other, but we found that kind of feels like a good happy medium. And the second question you said was around environments. A lot, and it would more if I could convince people to give us more out of home budget. So maybe you can call our sales team and work something out. But yeah, it absolutely does. And so I'll use an example. For a number of years, we did a enterprise-focused event called Work Without Limits. My team produces the whole thing internally, and it's pretty badass. If any of you have been there, hopefully you liked it too. And we think about the actual journey of people walking through that experience, and we'll have them interact with certain parts of our brand experience based on where they are literally in their journey through it. So 100%. We've even had concepts around, when return to office was a thing. I mean, it's still a thing, but when it was kind of first kicking off, we actually worked with, I can't remember the company right now, to help do an audit of the 10 worst commutes in the country. And we were going to buy out of home in those commutes and saying, hey, there's a better way you could be at home right now. And so it's something that we think about in every way, shape, and form. Yeah, I mean, it's super valuable if budget allows, of course.
Well, all right. Thank you, gentlemen, so much. Can we give them some love, a big round of applause?
Thank you.